Hello everybody, how's it going? My name is Justin Jeffress and I am an evangelist at Amazon Alexa, and I teach people how to build Alexa skills, and we're right here on time for the Alexa Conversations office hours. So yes, we are. Alright, I got a couple people jumping in, which is great. So yeah, please, if you have any questions, paste them into the chat. I was just in the Slack group this morning and was going through and answering some of your questions there. And I haven't gotten to all of those yet, so maybe some of you who are in the Slack channel tuning in may end up posting some of your questions there. We can answer them here. One thing that I do want to point out, just one question that I noticed this morning, someone was asking in the certification channel a question, but actually before I do that, let me take a step back and say in the chat we have Kirk C. He is very active on the forums and answering a lot of your technical questions. So Kirk C will be in the chat answering your Alexa Conversations related questions. And then we also have Jeremy Hill. And I think Jeremy's screen name is Jeremy 1986, I believe. So Jeremy, Kirk, when you're in the chat, just, say hi. And Jeremy just reached out to me and says he can't find the page. Let me twitch.tv/Amazon Alexa. There we go. Cool. So Jeremy will be on in just a moment. Cool. All right. So yes, Jeremy, thanks for tuning in. If you could make yourself known, say hi in the chat, and that way people will know, that they can ask you questions about certification. Okay, cool. Jeremy says he's watching an ad, so I don't know if he's heard my request. I don't want to keep repeating myself, so I'll come back to that in a moment. But let me go ahead and switch over to the Slack group, and because I want to address this question that I got this morning, and it has to deal with certification. So here we are. I don't know if I can make this bigger. Okay, yeah, that works. Seems like Command plus is a universal command that works across all apps. All right, let's stretch this out. So Oleg here says, that he submitted his skill yesterday. Is there any chance that it will pass certification by the 14th? And so one thing I want to point out is that, the requirements are that certification, you must submit your skill to the US skill store by September 14th. So it doesn't have to be certified. It has to pass certification by September 30th. So, I know some people are getting some messages saying back that the results should be available by this particular date, and are a little bit panicky because, that's past the 14th. But the 14th is the submission deadline, and then certification is by the 30th. So that's why I've been mentioning over and over and over again, like, hey, you should submit your skills early as possible, because there's probably going to be some back and forth between you and the sorry, I just got a message and I wanted to let the person know. Okay, something good. Okay, so we've got that. So you just want to make sure that the that you submit early. All right, and Jeremy is in the chat, so there we go. So Jeremy 1986, if you have any questions related to certification, please send over to Jeremy, and he'll answer your question. Let's see. Cool. Yes, and Karate TD gives us some information here, some anecdotes regarding to his particular situation. So FYI, mine's passed in 3 days. They overestimate most of the time. Everyone should be okay. Cool. All right. So now, what else did I want to mention? So one thing that you should not forget is by the 14th, you have to have like your skill description, video demo, and other information needs to be submitted. So you'll want your video demo submitted by then. So even if your skill isn't certified by the 14th, that's totally fine. You need to have that submission video ready to go. So don't underestimate the amount of time that that video demo is going to take. So also you should probably take a look at the rules as well. So I'm going to just go ahead and post this into the chat. Just want to make sure that you have all the information necessary for the hackathon. There we go. That's the page. I'm sure you all have it bookmarked, but you know, I would just recommend that you go through the rules one more time and get all your ducks in a row before you submit, so you don't lose out on your chance. Okay, let's see. So yeah, I just wanted to call that out because I've seen this person is not the only person that has asked that question in the Slack group. So just wanted to call that out and let you all know that just as long as you get your video in by the 14th and your skills submitted for certification by the 14th, you have some time. And Jeremy, I don't know if you can speak to this, but like, is your team like flagging Alexa Conversations based skills and like looking at those in any sort of priority? Again, I don't know what you can speak to, but if you could share some of that in the chat, that would be really helpful and put some people at ease. Okay, cool. So we have a whole lot of questions coming in. So yes, please, maybe since we're getting close to the deadline, and we did that 4-hour AMA yesterday, maybe you're all off building rather than running into questions. The Dream Saver does. I'm not sure if this is more of a question or a comment, but the Dream Saver says, stuck with finding an approach to validating slots in a dialog in AC for very long. Stuck with finding an approach to validating slots in a dialog in AC. I see. Okay. Yeah, let me, I'm going to copy this. And it's more of a statement than a question, but I can talk about some techniques that you can use to do that slot validation. Gold Zulu says, when's the deadline? LOL. When is the deadline? Let's see. I'm going to copy that and paste that question here. Jeremy says, we do have a subset of testers on our team that focus on Alexa Conversation skills. If you submit Alexa Conversation skills that include locales outside of the ENUS, certification can take longer since we certify each locale individually. Ooh, that's a good tip. It's a really good tip. So I'm gonna paste this down here. This is not a question, but good information. So what Jeremy is saying here is, if you're building an Alexa Conversations skill, but let's say you also support other regions, you just don't have Alexa Conversations in that, like say you've updated your existing skill that is multi-regional, and you've just added Alexa Conversations to the ENUS locale. When you submit your skill for certification, let's say let's say there was like 5 locales that you were originally supported. In addition to the ENUS with the Alexa Conversations part, that's going to get certified, it's going to go through the remaining 4 other locales that you are publishing to. And so what will happen there is it will prolong that process. So what I would do, knowing that information, I would just make sure that for the hackathon, I would just submit a skill that only is going to need to be certified in the ENUS region. Let's see. I want to jump back to the comment from the Dream Saver, and then I also want to, somebody asked, here we go. Digital Static 64 says, can I ask an Alexa question unrelated to Alexa conversations? So I would say go ahead and ask it. And depending upon the volume of questions that we get regarding Alexa conversations during this hour, I may or may not get to it. So right now, there hasn't been a whole lot of questions coming in. So I think it would be, a good, I think you have a good chance of me answering that question. Okay, so I'm going to keep pasting stuff in this file and then we'll go through. I'm going to skip ahead to Jody Burnett's question. Do you share the transcript of these sessions? Sorry to ask, been a while since I last visited and checked in. Well, I don't have the transcripts available. All of the videos after we've streamed them are available on the resources tab. So if you go to alexaconversations.devpost.com, you go to the resources tab, and then you go to the contest office hours schedule. Click on that, and I'm going to share the link to this in the chat. So if you lose me here, you'll be able to get straight to here. But you can see here we've got upcoming events, and then over on this part of the table we have on-demand content, and we have view on demand. You can just click any one of these and view the material afterward. So there we go. Take a look at that. That's how you can get the on-demand. Oh, and you know what? I should use the reply feature when I paste links to that answer people's questions. Okay, let's see what else. I'm gonna go back. I know there's a few more questions that popped up in the chat here, but I've started copying and pasting some stuff, and I want to go back. So the Dreamsaver says, stuck with finding an approach to validating slots, and I think here we go. And there is a question. I think this is a follow-up to that statement. So kind of reaching that point where I fall back to just asking a single value per dialogue only because contextual validations are important to the experience I'm working on. Okay, yes. So if you want to do any sort of slot validation, the way how Alexa Conversations works, if you need to do any manipulation or anything in your backend, you need an API in order to do that. And so what you can do in your dialogue is map it out so that way you have an API that is going to validate your slot. So you would have an invoke API at the beginning of your dialogue that's going to invoke the main API that is your task that you're trying to complete. And then partway through your interaction, if you wanted to validate a slot, you'll have another invoke API that's going to invoke your validation API, and it's going to pass that slot over to the validation API, and then you can check and make sure that they've said the right thing, or chosen an option that is a valid option. So let's say you give them it's a shopping skill, and they ask for, I don't know, vacuum cleaners. And vacuum cleaners is something that you don't offer. So it could send it over to your backend. You see that it's a vacuum cleaner, and you can be like, oh, sorry, vacuum cleaners, we don't sell those. And so what you would need to do is have a dialogue that has you'd want one dialogue that goes through those validation API calls and doesn't have any they're all valid when they come in, and then you want another one where you've got nothing comes in correctly the first time, so they keep denying and saying, oh, so by they I mean the skill finds that thing is invalid and says oh, that's an invalid option, and then that way you've trained the model to validate each one of those slots using your API, and then once all of those things are valid, you can then, go through and, call your final API, which is that task API that you're trying to complete. So hopefully that makes some sense. Let's see. Let's move on here. I'm not even sure how to pronounce your username. I'm just going to say Crush. Hopefully that's somewhat close. What if the result of the certification will be negative on September 23rd? I need to wait another 2 weeks, which will be outside the September 30th. Yeah, so I would say that, you know, having your skills submitted by the 14th is you're in good shape. If you submitted it today, you're in really great shape because you have 4 more days until the deadline. And as Jeremy said, there's a subset of testers that are dedicated to looking at Alexa Conversations based skills. And so, things are going to be taking less time than the estimates here. In fact, somebody in the Slack group said something to the effect of, who was it? I don't remember where I saw it. But somebody said, if you look in the Slack group, somebody said something to the effect of they got their skill certified within a couple days. So it's definitely giving you a wide estimate there. But I would suggest you submit earlier because you'll beat the rush. So the sooner you get your skills submitted into the certification process, the better chance you won't collide with the mass submission that people are going to be doing. So. Okay, cool. Jody Burnett, I already answered that question. Let's continue on. Is there a way to omit text? Okay, this is the non-conversations question that Digital Static wanted me to answer. We have a few. All right, I think we have enough time for me to answer this question. Is there a way to omit text from a card in the Alexa app activity feed? For example, if I want to show the user's balance in a card, can I then remove the balance or the whole card from the activity? So once you have shown a card, there's no way for you to manually remove that card. So what I would suggest is you don't want to put any sensitive information in your cards. And Jeremy, you might be able to shed some light on this, but that might actually cause your skill to fail certification during that testing period if they see something that you're showing in a card that could be deemed as sensitive information. That might cause your skill to fail certification. So but yeah, there's no way how to say, oh, hey, I want to delete my cards from the skill to be able to say delete my cards from the activity. Good question. Let's see, Kirk C. This is in relation to the thing submitting your skill, but he says this illustrates the importance of submitting your skills certification early. So yes, do that. Can you explain how to use API failure, please? Yes. So API failure, and I think, oh, you know what? Did I open that up? I think I did this the other day and wasn't sure, but I'm going to check again. Troubleshooting. This known issues page is invaluable because it shows you some of the things. Let's see, confirm API. Okay, there used to be something with the API failure, but it looks like that is no longer an issue. But I'm just going to share that out. Let's see. I think did Kirk C said? Cool. All right. Kirk C just shared out a nice little link here that is forum post, have several loads about how to use the API failure with Alexa Conversations. But yes, so the API failure, you use that in the case when your API crashed or had a failure, some sort of failure, right? So it's a way to give your skill a graceful way of being oh, oops, there's it's the internet, right? And so nothing's guaranteed to work 100% of the time, all the time, 24 hours a day. There could be things that are load dependent and stuff. And so, and then also if it takes too long for your skill to respond, your skill will close Alexa, the service will think that like, oh, there's something wrong with your skill. And so like, you might want to have, if you have like an API that you're using that takes a lot of time to respond or isn't very reliable, you might want to put your own sort of like timeouts in it that checks back and sees like, oh shoot, this hasn't responded back yet. I need to interrupt and come back and say, hey, this isn't quite working. And so API failure can help you notify the user that, oh, hey, there was a problem. Try back a little bit later. Probably shouldn't suggest right away that they try back, because if it's a technology issue, and it's not very likely that it's going to be fixed really quickly, you probably don't want to tell them to try right away. One thing that people have asked is there a way to clear the context of all the slots that you've previously collected? And so API success, because once you've fulfilled the request with an API success, it doesn't clear the conversational context, and that allows you to like continue on with whatever object that was returned from the API to continue like having a discussion about whatever, that's why, like, for example, in the pet match tutorial, we get a recommendation and then we can say later on, oh, well, what is that? And then it'll like do another API call and look up the description. So in the case of, if you use an API failure, it will clear the context for you. So that's another case where you could use the API failure, is if you wanted to like clear that context of all the previous slots that you've collected up until that point. And it's just another dialogue act that you attach an APLA response template for, so that way you can define whatever that text is. And so you don't even have to put a failure message in it. You get to control and craft how you respond to that. So you could use a failure as a success as far as the customer is concerned, and they wouldn't really know the difference between the two. Just the major thing would be that if you did that, your slot values would be cleared, and if that's the effect that you're trying to do, then that's what it would work for. So all right, let's continue on. Let's see, we've got Mon Howard. Okay, I think I've seen you in the Slack group. How do we know when an utterance should be included in conversations versus intents? I want to vary the options on what the user can invoke the welcome. On what the user can invoke. I think what you're saying in the welcome message. How do I know when an utterance should be included in conversations? So yes, what I would suggest is that Alexa Conversations is great for like multi-turn interactions where you're expecting like a conversation that goes back and forth between your user and your skill. And whereas like things that are like one-shot interactions where there's not going to be a whole lot of back and forth between the user and the skill are better suited for your intent. And so it sounds like what you're doing here is like you're doing like a hybrid skill, which means your interaction model Alexa Conversations, well, technically you don't have to. So if you wanted to vary the options on what they can invoke in the welcome message, what you'd want to do is uncheck the box as Alexa Conversations to be your the default dialog manager, and craft your welcome message in the launch request to like give them a limited set of options. And then when they say something that then triggers like something that needs to be handled by Alexa Conversations, then you use delegation to handle that. And I should have, let's see, I prepared a bunch of links. I guess when I navigated away from it when I went to the known issues page. Let me grab the thing here on how to hand off from dialog management to and from Alexa Conversations, because this is going to be relevant to your question here. Okay, this is the first time I've used that click to reply button. So there we go. So take a look at that. That should help. Okay. Is there a complete, let me copy this. This is from P. Hamilton 2020. Is there a complete code for the pet selector app on GitHub? Yes, there is. I went through the tutorial and it compiles fine, but then repeats the questions. Yes, there is. The sample code is available on GitHub. I guess I have the cookbook open. All right. Alexa, we go to pet match with Alexa conversations. Because we have different versions of it. There we go. This is the one. Let me copy and paste and reply. Sweet. There you go. Okay. Next question. This is from AppGreat. Simple question. All right. Let's see. And I have a couple of touch wrappers on the welcome APL. I'm not sure what I do to respond to their send event in Lambda as there are no slots in the welcome APL. Okay. So yes, and I think I was in touch with you yesterday during the AMA about this. And so, you know, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. So like, what are you trying to do with the touch event? Like, is there an API that you're trying to invoke? You know, because you can define like what that touch event is going to do. So, while there's not any slots for the specific for the welcome, but let's say you have a button that is a selection. Okay, let me take a step back and root this in a concrete example. Let's say you're adding an APL document to the welcome screen of the pizza reference skill, and it displays a menu on the welcome screen. And you know, you've got like 4 quadrants of the screen and one so it's like split up into with something in the middle, right? So you have 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you've got like meat lovers pizza, you've got veggie, and then maybe cheese, and I don't know, Chicago deep dish or something like that, right? So you have those 4 options. Tapping on one of those buttons would then send an event to the you know, order pizza, and then the name of the pizza that, you know, that's associated with the button that you pressed would then be fired off to that event, right? So even though there's no slots for welcome, what you're doing is you're giving the user an opportunity to speak their selection or simply tap on a button on the screen. So hopefully that answers your question. And so that's one thing that I want to know is like, what is the intent of having a button on your welcome? Because, and that's why I asked yesterday, are you trying to do like a reset? Is that what you're trying to do? Like, you know, reset to go back to the welcome page as an option. But I remember in Slack, you were saying that that's not what you wanted to do. You wanted to send an event. And so just trying to figure out like what event you're trying to send and where you're trying to send it to. And, you know, even though there's no slot on that welcome page, if you're trying to send the event to a different, what's the word I'm looking for? A different event, like you want to press that button to send them off to, you know, ordering. Instead of sending them to the welcome, you're going to send them to that line of dialogue that, you know, that utterance set that represents giving that pizza, and that slot value isn't what they said, but it's what they tapped on. And to show an example of that, in the cookbook, in the features demos, you go to Intro to Alexa Conversations and take a look at the index.js file here. There's an example of like clicking on a button here, and you can see here you've got an APL user event, and the argument here is set favorite color. So you don't even have to like you know, it's not bound to the welcome per se, right? So you could name your welcome template or your argument to whatever you want it to be. So in the case, the example that I gave with the pizza, you know, it would be like set pizza to customize or something like that, right? And then when I tap on that, you'll get that event. You'll get the fact that it was a set pizza, customized pizza, and then you would fire this event here, and you would just change this from specify favorite pizza, favorite color to specify pizza or whatever you want to, whatever your name of your utterance set is. And then the name of this would be pizza, and then the value would be, you know, whatever argument that they tapped on. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, paste it, share it into the thing. We're about 30 minutes in. I just want to make sure that I get to all of your questions. Let's see. Yep, this is the conversation with AppGreat. Let's see. Kirk C says, no, as a skilled developer, you do not have the power to remove sent cards. Yep, that was relation to the other question. Jeremy, 1986, says, you definitely want to redact any sensitive information about the user in home cards your skill sends. Skills will fail certification if sensitive info is present in the home cards. So yeah, let me go ahead and copy that. I'm going to paste that into the good information section. Kirksey, you've given some good information too. I should probably copy some of that as well. Let's see. Let's continue on. Let's see. Let's go to this question here. So this is from Diva Kel. I think I've seen your name pop up places. We're trying to make sure I fully understand your validation API example. How would I use it for something like filling the pounds and ounces in a conversation and the user technically completes the conversation, but when I check the input, they tell me they weigh 400 pounds. I know he weighed 50 pounds a week ago and 72 ounces. It shouldn't be above 16. Let's say I have a complete answer dialog with 2 number slots that signals. Okay. All right. There's a lot to unpack in this question here. Let's see. So what you're doing is you're comparing like the values between previous and before. So what you'd have to do is, so there's going to be some backend stuff that you're going to have to do in your validation. So your validation API would first need to check to see, have I seen a slot value before for this user for their weight? And if the answer is no, well, then there's nothing to compare. So you just save it. And then the next time the user uses your skill and they give you a weight, you can then compare their weight with the previous weight value that was given and see, oh, hey, this particular example, like, you know, like you said here, they said that they're 400 pounds, but last week it was 50. So you'd have some logic in your validation API that would say, oh, that's probably not very likely. And so then you could send that information back. And in your APLA template, you could have like a when clause that like takes a look at the values, or so you have a couple options, right? Like you could have the APLA do all of the figuring out, like, you know, like you pass it, like you could pass back in the slot with properties, you know, what a previous weight value was and the new weight value is, and do that comparison there. Or in your backend, you could craft that message, and then you would just have a really lean APLA template that just reads the string that you sent back from your validation API. So like, yeah, that one would require more like work in your backend. So you'd have to have a database to save that information. And you could, if you're just saving a few small things, what I would recommend that you use is the persistent attributes to do that. And you can use the, actually, yeah, I don't know if you've taken a look at this, but no, not AC. I've got Lex Conversations on the brain. If you go to the cake time example and you go to help your skill remember, and I'll share this in the chat, there is code on how to use the persistent attributes. This one uses S3 to save and read the data, but if you wanted to use DynamoDB, it's actually quite simple. Instead of using the S3, what's the S3 adapter, you would just use the DynamoDB adapter, And in code, you still use the same set persistent attributes and save persistent attributes functions to save the attributes. And the magic of this is that you use, let's see, where is it? Adapter. Adapt. There it is. So in this case, we're using the S3 adapter. So if you're using Node.js, you would replace the S3 persistence adapter with the Dynamodb persistence adapter. And then when you would also require, instead of the S3 persistence adapter, you would use Dynamodb adapter. And then when you call the with persistence adapter function, you would set that to be new persistence adapter dot Dynamodb persistence adapter. No need to pass in this persistence bucket. You would, I think you have to specify a name of the table that you want it to create. And then, because it's an object that's bound to it, the object knows how to talk to the service that it is made to talk to. So I'm going to go ahead and share the module for that in here. So that would be a way that you could save it with persistent attributes. And one of the things, if you use persistent attributes, the key is the skills or the user ID. So, it's already associated with just that user. So again, yeah, you would have to have a validation API that does those checks on your back end. So hopefully that answers your question. I'm going to move on. Let's see, Pete Haas. Let's see, what is this question here? Do you have an example of a visual API confirmation for a confirm API response? I do not have an API confirmation or a visual confirmation for an example of that. Yeah, sorry that we do not have an example of a visual API confirmation for a confirm API response. Let's see, Weiner Brazil says hi, hello, thanks for tuning in. Let's see, this is from Ashan F. Can't find a way to rename my Alexa skill. I have changed the invocation name and now I want to rename Alexa skill so correct name is displayed in the console. Okay, yes, so I would say you can do that with the CLI, but I'm going to tell you, if you're using Alexa Conversations, do not use the CLI to update the name of the skill, because you may end up running into some problems with overriding information in your model. So I'm going to say don't do that. Under normal circumstances, you could use the CLI, download the skill.json file, change the meta information there and do it. There is also a way to change the name that's going to show up in the skill store. I'm going to go ahead and I want to log in real quick. I'm going to switch screens away because I don't want to share my private information with you all. Developer.amazon.com, sign in. I want to use, no, I don't want to use that. Sorry, hang on just a sec. That's the one. Okay, we are logged in. Just going to navigate over to this real quick. Bear with me while I do that. You get a nice zoomed in shot of me. All right, let's see. Yeah, we'll open up that one. Okay, so when you go to the distribution and certification section, you can change your name here. And let's see, I think if I just change this to hit save and continue. I'm not sure if it'll update it in the UI or not. Yeah, so it did. So yes, you can do that. So if you go to the distribution tab here and change your public name here, interesting, it's showing up over here. It says live code pet matches, which is what I had it before. But if I go back to the skills list here, it shows pet match office hours. So yeah, I'm not sure why it didn't update over here, but it's definitely updated in the list. Maybe this is cached or something. Maybe if I like delete my cookies and come back. But yeah, check out the distribution tab. All right, let's see. Let's continue on. Kirk C has an answer here for the validation API. I think the way to handle this would be by implementing some logic in your skills backend. Yep. Cool. Yep. Great. We had some overlap with our description here. Thank you, Kirk C. AppGreat says, I have updated my question in Slack. It's difficult to explain in chat. Okay. I will take a look. Let's see. I want to get through the questions that are remaining here, and then I'll go back to Slack. Bear with me for a second. AppGreat. Okay, cool. Kirk C shows click edit development. Cool. All right. Awesome. Thank you. Jeremy says to Ashan, you should be able to update your skill name by going to the distribution tab. Okay, cool. I'm going to go ahead and like copy these. I'm wondering, you know what I'm going to do? I haven't done this, but like for some of these like really great like suggestions, I think we should like in the chat. I know I've got that like follow-up channel for like questions and office hours to follow up on. Maybe I should also post like useful comments and information from office hours in there. Kind of came up with the idea right now. Let's see. Docville has a question. Says, do I try to solve that in my conversation or just error message and start over? Thanks. I'm saving to RDS. Okay. What is the... Do I solve that in my conversation or just error message and start over? Oh, yes. I see. So you could like yeah, so what you could do is in your welcome, or sorry, not your welcome, in your prompt that you send back or your APLA document, you have a couple options, right? Because if you used API failure, it would clear all of the slots. Oh, that might actually be a good way to do this. This might be a good candidate for using API failure. So you do the validation, you send API failure, and then what ends up happening is that slot value gets cleared. And so then Alexa Conversations would then need to then prompt. So I don't know if that would automatically prompt. You might also need to then daisy chain in. That might actually be the better solution. Sorry, I'm like thinking on this as we go. But I think you might want to daisy chain and you would use like the offer API. And so the API would then be to validate that slot value again. So you would, I think you might be able to do something like API fail and then daisy chain into an offer API. And that offer API is going to be associated with validating the wait slot again. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's see, Calvin Wang has a question. Oh, and one thing I also wanted to point out, Doc Bell, sorry, before it says you had a comment here saying, thanks, I'm saving to RDS. If you wanted to use persistent attributes with RDS, you could implement your own persistence adapter. And Greg Bullmash created this really cool like local persistence adapter. There's a protocol that if you follow, there's like 3 methods that you implement, and then like you can essentially create an adapter for the persistence attributes that works with anything. So let me see that. That's under tools. If you look at this, if you go to local persistence, he has this local.persist.class. There's 3 functions in here. local persistence adapter. Then there's the get attributes, save attributes, and delete attributes. So as long as you implement like those functions and write custom code to like interact with whatever service that you're interacting with. In this case, he's saving something to the local file system, so that's why he's doing these different file system operations. But if you wanted to write your own persistence adapter for RDS, all you would have to do is, take this and you'd want to rename this to be like your RDS persistence adapter, but then implement get attributes, save attributes, and delete attributes, and then you're good to go. So I'm gonna save this. I would suggest maybe not doing that for the hackathon, like just because of time constraints, but it's definitely something that may help you. What I would probably do is, like, if I already have some code that works for saving now, I would do that, submit it for certification, and then because you can like change your code without having to resubmit your skill for certification, then I would go and continue working on that back-end part and updating that. So I don't want to distract you and have you go off and build some code and miss your submission deadline. Okay, Calvin Wang, sorry I got sidetracked with their question. Is there a way to seed a dialog so that an intent with arguments doesn't request those arguments again? I'd like the weather for San Francisco might prompt the user for a day, but won't ask them the city. Let me see if I understand the question. Is there a way to seed the dialog so the intent doesn't request those arguments again? So by seeding, do you mean like you want to set a default value? You want to keep that context around? I'm not quite sure like what it is. Like, I'd like the weather for San Francisco might prompt the user for the day. But okay, just from your example here, what I think you're trying to say is like, if the user gives me all the information, I'd like to request the city and day if none are provided. Yes. So Alexa Conversations will handle that for you. So what you would do is you would just need to create some training data that shows these different examples. So you would have like one example where you have them giving you both the city and the day. And then you'd create another one that just has the city. And then you have another one that just has the day. And Alexa Conversations, and as long as you make both of those slots required in your API, Alexa Conversations will automatically prompt the user for the missing slot information. And if you take a look at the pet match tutorial, we actually show you how to do that. Let me respawn. There you go. If you go to module 4, actually, you would want to start at module 3 because module 3 has you create your welcome prompt and everything. But when you get to module 4, we actually show you with the sample dialogues how you would do that. So we have several different dialogues. You can see here, this one, the user says there's 3 parameters that we're collecting in this case. So we have size, temperament, and energy. And in dialogue, actually dialogue 0, let me scroll back up, starts with large and family, so that's 2, size and temperament, and then follows up with the energy. We have a few different permutations here. This one has size and temperament. If I go to the last dialogue, where is it? We have 1 by 1. So this one says, they say I want a size, then it asks for an energy, and it asks for a temperament. So you can create various sample dialogues that cover all the missing like cases. And then Alexa Conversations will automatically prompt for the missing information. Good question. Okay. All right, we've got 10 minutes. App, great. I'm going to go over to the Slack question that you asked. I believe that was in Tech Questions. I know you provided a link to it, but sometimes like when I click on those links, it opens up my browser, does some weird stuff. So I'm just going to try to find your question in the chat. I'm not sure if it was in technical questions or in the Ask Me Anything. I think it was in the Ask Me Anything. I could just do a search for your name, but I found it right here. Cool, okay. Let's see. All right, let's read through. Slot name will depend on the utterance you're delegating to. Yep, that's right. So what Kavindra is saying here is like you're going to delegate to an utterance set. So there's no slots, since there's no slots associated with your welcome, and there's no way to delegate to your welcome because you're delegating to an utterance set. And your utterance set's going to have some slots associated with it. So, oh, I see. You have a welcome here. Did you define this custom welcome? Let me take a look. Let me go into the too many tabs. Oh, actually, it's not in a tab. No. Ha, okay. Let me close that. Let's go into this skill. Oh, look, now it's finally updated. See, now this says pet match office hours. So that other thing was cached and it got cleared. Okay, so let me go here. We'll go to utterance sets. Welcome. Okay, so there is a welcome here with let's get started. I mean, if you wanted to associate some slots with this, you could. It gives you the option. I don't know if it'll build though. I've never actually tried associating slots with, let's see. Okay. Let's try that. Save. Let's see if this will build. I haven't tried this, so I don't know what'll happen. Let's see. This is what my utterance set says for welcome page. Yeah, so since there's no slots, you wouldn't be able to like tap a button and send slots because there's no slots associated with this. But if this builds, then you would be able to like send a welcome and have that. I don't know. But I don't know. APIs, welcome. Okay, interesting. I've never looked at this that closely before, but I didn't realize that the way how the welcome is, it's like a special API that you don't write. That's what it would seem based upon looking at the API, based upon looking at the UI here. It's set to invoke APIs and it's a welcome. That's like a built-in thing. You don't write code like Alex Conversations is going to service that request for you. So it's training. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going to happen here. That's interesting. Let's see what Kavindra had to say. Yeah, so Kavindra's he's getting redirected to the human filled dialog flow. Now the user taps on the touch wrapper. Okay, yeah, so I would say ignore what I just talked about here. I think this is an experiment that I'll like figure out on, but what your question is asking for is like, how do I redirect if the user taps on hemophilia? So you would, I don't know what your dialogue looks like, but let me, yeah, I'll back out while that's training. We'll take a look at the pizza reference skill. And you have an utterance set. Let me go to my utterance sets as soon as this loads. You have your C Willie CS is tuning in. Hey, how's it going? We got Cami. I don't know if any of you people are aware who Cami is. She used to be on our team. Thanks for tuning in. Yes, I got the nice beard going. This is I don't know how many months or weeks this is, but it's gotten quite long. Let's see. So hang on, Cami. I'm in the middle of answering a question here. I'll talk about personal matters in just a moment. So AppGreat, regarding like if you tap on the skill, how do you then like delegate that to your dialogue flow for having hemophilia? I don't know what your utterance set is named, but if we go to the pizza reference skill, let's say we have let's see how we have order specific size pizza. So let's say like we have a screen and we have buttons on it, and we can tap on small, medium, large pizza sizes. And so what we would do here is when they tap on one of those buttons, we would delegate to the order specific pizza size pizza utterance set. And if we edit this, you can see here we have the size slot associated with it. And so that size slot would then be forwarded over. And so this code sample that I shared with you earlier, too many tabs. Let's go back to the feature demos, Alexa Conversations, and go to the intro to Alexa Conversations and index. So in the case of pizza, you would have in the delegate request for Amazon.conversations, you would send it over to the order specific size pizza utterance set, and then your slot wouldn't be color, it would be size, and the value would be the value that they tapped on. So if you wanted to then forward them over to the hemophilia example, I don't know what your utterance set is called, but you would forward it over to your utterance set, and then the value, if there's a slot that's associated with like what it is they're asking for, you would have the name of that slot, and then this value here would be hemophilia, and then that would help you go through that dialogue flow. So hopefully that answers your question. Let's see here. Let me know, AppGreat, if that answered your question. Cami says, I can't hang on, this is important. Do you still get matcha every morning despite the pandemic? Yes, I buy stuff off of Amazon, and I have a whole box full of my my green tea. Let's see. Goldzilla says, Cami must the APL person before Joe. Yes. It's funny that Cami would come on right as I'm answering an Alexa Conversations question that's related to APL. Let's see. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Dadiki. Hi, Jeffress. I'm from Brazil. Hello. Thanks for tuning in. It's awesome. Let's see. Gold Zulu wants to help him wants you to help him build a big text APL with a deadline for the Alexa Conversations hackathon. Cami says, I think I can still do that. Cool. Okay. And then I'm not sure how to pronounce your name either. Zendula says, what 4 AMA is this I see in your chat history? Yes, okay, so there was a 4-hour AMA that we did yesterday. That was a marathon in the Slack group for the chat. For the hackathon. So if you go to this link here, I'm going to share it in the chat. We're right at time on office hours. So I'm going to copy this link and I'm going to share that with you here. Boom. There you go. That's how you sign up. And that will bring you access to this wonderful Alexa Conversations Slack workspace. And if you go to Ask Me Anything in the channels list, the questions from the 4-hour AMA are all in here. So you can scroll through. And in fact, it's not just limited to yesterday's AMA. If you look at this, I know this is in Japanese, but that was a question that somebody asked on Friday last week. But what we've been doing is every Wednesday doing AMAs. So you can actually scroll through this content and just view everything, every question that's been asked during the AMAs. And then we also have this wonderful tech questions section. And again, you can scroll through this. And the search feature is really nice. So, let's say I have a question about, how do I use a should end session? You can type in like should end session, boom. and then find other questions that have been answered about that. So, like, you know, that's another thing to think about, like when you're using the Slack channel. Like maybe somebody already has asked a similar question, so you can do a search, bring it up, find it. It's a really valuable resource for the hackathon. Zendula says, "Oh wow, I missed all of this." Yes, okay, so let me share this out with you. Copy that link, paste it in the chat. This link, oops. Oh no, that's the right one. Oh, interesting. Clicking that cleared my my chat. So, oh, interesting. It didn't clear it. It just like pushed it on a stack. Okay. So this page is all of like the things. So I know it's labeled as office hours, but it's everything that we've done. In fact, I think I already have this open in another tab. So this, everything, there's two tables on here. This one table here is all the upcoming events. So we have our AMAs, we have our office hours, and then we have our on-demand content. So this is all the stuff that happened in the past. All these links here are things that you can click on and view, you know, again, and watch on replay. So we've got our office hours. We also have some stuff that I went through. This Sam and I, who worked on the pet match tutorial for Lex Conversations. You can, you know, watch the 4-hour stream that we did on modules 1 through 4, and then the 2-hour one that we did on modules 5 and 6. And then we have a 2-part series that Nathan Grice and I did on the pizza reference skill. So I would say check that out. Yes, it is 11:02 Pacific time. That means we're at the end of office hours. So just one thing I want to point out, Goldzilla, you're going to be happy. Here comes the plug. I'm going to zoom in. You have 4 days to submit your skill for the Alexa Skills challenge for Alexa Conversations. And yep, that's the plug. So yep, we're coming up to the final stretch. Again, we've got the Slack group. So if you have any questions, you know, go to the tech questions section and ask away. And what else did I want to point out before we go? Let's see. Yeah. So yes, just the deadline. Just also one other thing to point out. The 14th, you need to have your video and information about the skill submitted in the submission package, and then your certification. You need to have submitted your skill for certification, but it needs to pass by the 30th. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy these. Actually, let me just copy all of the requirements and just paste it into the chat. Boom. Oh no, it's too long. Let's do this instead. We'll copy. I'll just paste them out as 3 different chats. Kind of makes sense, right? Will I get rate limited on my comments though? I'm a moderator, so maybe not. Cool, okay. Let's see. Any other things? Is Akirsh on? Trade Last says, hey Akirsh. Let's see. Whatever Justin responds, -1 hour. I see. Okay, cool. Oh, Akirsh is on. Hey Akirsh, how's it going? Wow, we've got like Akirsh and Cami on office hours just as I'm like about to wrap office hours and sign off. Goldzilla was asking, so I don't really usually do this, but I do stream on my own channel on Twitch. So like the Akirsh says, I've been here the whole time. You've just been silent. Just forgot my login. Okay, cool. What was I gonna say? So yes, I stream on my own channel too, and I've been streaming since April. So if you go to /JustJeffers on Twitch, I've been working on a skill called My Cactus. It's a cactus raising simulator. It's not using Alexa Conversations, and this is a collaboration between Allison Atwell of VUI Designer at Amazon and Joe Mo Code. And we're getting close to being able to like open up the beta, which is awesome. And so I don't want to distract you from the hackathon, but if you want to tune in, I'm going to be doing that today at 2 p.m. Pacific time. And I am getting pinged for a meeting that I'm late to, so I should really sign off. Let's see. All right. Cami says skip the meeting. I don't want to skip this meeting because it's about my cactus. So I got to meet with Joe and Allison. Yes. Justin, sign off in Japanese. I don't know. I will just end this here. So thank you all for tuning in. また今度。That's all I will say in Japanese at this time. また今度 means see you next time. はい、じゃあよろしくお願いします。See you later.